at every other primate on Earth. Chimpanzees, gorillas, orangutans, baboons. Every single one of them is covered in thick fur. Then look at us. Virtually naked. No fur, no coat, just skin. We are the only primate on Earth that lost its fur. And the question that has puzzled scientists for over a century is simply why? Scene 2. The story starts around 6 million years ago, when our ancestors and chimpanzees shared a common ancestor and began walking separate evolutionary paths. At that point, our ancestors were fully furry. Over millions of years, something happened that stripped that fur away piece by piece, generation by generation. But evolution never does anything without a reason. So what was the reason? Scene 3. Scientists have debated this question for generations, and over the years, several major theories have emerged to explain why we lost our fur. Some focus on temperature and the need to stay cool. Some focus on parasites and the need to stay clean. Some focus on water and an aquatic past. Each theory has evidence. Each theory has gaps. The truth, as with most things in evolution, is probably a combination of all of them. Scene 4. To understand why we lost our fur, we need to go back to where it all began. Around 3 to 4 million years ago, the climate in East Africa began to change dramatically. The great forests that had sheltered our ancestors for millions of years began to shrink. In their place, open savanna, grassland that stretched to the horizon, and our ancestors had to follow. Out of the shade, into the sun. Scene 5. Here is the immediate problem. Fur is brilliant insulation. In a cold forest, it keeps heat in. But on an open sun-baked savanna, it does the opposite. It traps heat dangerously inside the body. A furry creature running across open grassland in African midday heat risks overheating and dying within minutes. Our ancestors had a serious temperature problem. Scene 6. Natural selection works on exactly this principle. The individuals who could run further, hunt longer, and survive the midday heat were the ones who lived to pass on their genes. And the individuals who happened to have slightly less fur, slightly better heat management, had a survival advantage. Over thousands of generations, that small advantage added up. Less fur meant more survival. More survival meant more offspring. More offspring meant less fur became the norm. Scene 7. But losing fur alone was not enough. To survive in the heat, our ancestors needed a replacement cooling system, and they evolved one of the most sophisticated cooling mechanisms of any mammal on Earth, sweat glands. Humans have between 2 and 4 million sweat glands covering almost every part of our bodies. No other primate comes close. We are the sweatiest animal on Earth, and that is one of our greatest superpowers. Scene 8. Think about how a dog cools down. It pants. That works, but only up to a point. Panting requires the dog to stop and rest to cool down effectively. Humans sweat from every pore simultaneously, cooling the entire body surface at once while continuing to move. This means humans can run in midday heat that would kill or incapacitate almost any other mammal. We are the greatest long-distance runners on Earth, and bare skin with sweat glands is why. Scene 9. This cooling advantage gave our ancestors a hunting strategy unlike anything else in the animal kingdom. Persistence hunting. They could not outrun an antelope in a sprint, no human can. But they could follow it for hours across open savanna in the midday heat, tracking it by footprint and observation, until the animal collapsed from heat exhaustion, not because they were faster, because they were cooler. Bare skin and sweat made humans the most effective endurance hunters the world has ever seen. Scene 10. Now here is a theory that often gets overlooked but has strong scientific support. Fur is not just a coat, it is a habitat. A warm, dark, humid environment that is absolutely perfect for parasites, ticks, fleas, lice, and the diseases they carry. In the ancient world, these parasites were not just annoying, they were deadly. Carrying malaria, typhus, and dozens of other fatal diseases, our ancestors lived in close physical contact with each other and with animals. Parasiters were a constant, mortal threat. Scene 11. On bare skin, parasites have nowhere to hide. They are immediately visible and can be picked off by a partner. This is exactly what grooming behavior in primates evolved for, parasite removal. But thick fur makes that job enormously harder. As our ancestors began living in larger social groups in closer contact, the pressure to reduce parasites became a genuine survival advantage. The individuals with less fur harbored fewer deadly parasites and lived longer, healthier lives. Scene 12. And here is where sexual selection enters the story. If bare skin signaled health, signaled freedom from parasites and disease, then it would have become attractive. Individuals who chose less furry partners were choosing healthier partners. Healthier partners meant healthier offspring. Over thousands of generations, the preference for less fur would have reinforced the physical reality of having less fur. Evolution and attraction working in the same direction. Scene 13. Now we come to one of the most controversial and fascinating theories in the entire debate. The aquatic ape theory. First proposed in the 1960s, it suggests that at some point in our evolutionary past, our ancestors spent a significant period of time living near and in water, rivers, lakes, coastal shorelines, and that this aquatic phase drove many of our unique features, including the loss of fur. Scene 14. The evidence cited includes the fact that humans are one of very few land mammals that can consciously control their breathing, essential for swimming and diving. Human babies float instinctively and can swim before they can walk. We have a diving reflex that slows the heart rate when the face is submerged, something aquatic mammals have. And wet fur is heavy, cold, and restrictive in water, while bare skin is streamlined. The theory remains controversial, but it has never been fully disproved. Scene 15. One of the most powerful pieces of evidence for the thermoregulation theory comes from behavior. When researchers looked at when our ancestors were most active compared to the predators that hunted them, a pattern emerged. Humans occupied what scientists call the midday niche, the period of peak heat when lions, leopards, and other large predators rested in the shade. Our bare skin and sweat glands gave us the ability to be active when our predators could not be. It was not just a hunting advantage. It was a safety advantage. Scene 16. The coastal migration theory adds another layer. As early humans followed the coastlines of Africa and Asia, living on fish, shellfish, and sea vegetables, they spent increasing amounts of time in and around salt water. Salt water damages and mats fur significantly. The sea wind cools bare skin efficiently. And the nutrition available from coastal foods, rich in omega-3 fatty acids and iodine, supported the dramatic expansion of the human brain that was happening at exactly the same time. The coast may have shaped us, inside and out. Scene 17. When our ancestors lost their fur, they exposed their skin directly to the African sun. Ultraviolet radiation is brutal, damaging DNA and causing cancer. The response was rapid darkening of the skin through increased melanin production. Dark skin is essentially biological sunscreen. But then, when humans migrated away from the equator into lower UV environments, the equation reversed. Lighter skin absorbs more UV and helps produce essential vitamin D in low sunlight conditions. Skin color is not race. It is a precise evolutionary response to sunlight levels. Scene 18. If losing fur was so advantageous, why did we keep any at all? The answer reveals just how precise evolutionary pressure can be. Head hair remained because the top of the head receives the most direct sun exposure, and hair provides crucial protection against UV radiation and heat. Eyebrows remain to direct sweat away from the eyes. Armpit and pubic hair reduces friction during movement and running. And eyelashes protect the eyes from dust and debris. Every remaining hair on the human body has a specific surviving function. Scene 19. Here is something fascinating. Chimpanzee babies are born relatively hairless, just like human babies. But within weeks, the chimp baby begins growing a full coat of fur. Human babies never do. Scientists believe this is a clue about when the fur loss happened. Our ancestors may have evolved to essentially retain the juvenile hairless condition into adulthood, a process called neoteny, where the young form of an ancestor becomes the adult form of the descendant. We did not lose our fur. We never grew it in the first place. Scene 20. The loss of fur and the expansion of the human brain happened at roughly the same time in evolutionary history. This is not a coincidence. The brain is the most heat-sensitive organ in the body. Even a small rise in brain temperature causes serious cognitive impairment. The sophisticated cooling system that came with losing fur, the sweat glands, the bare skin, the ability to lose heat rapidly, may have been precisely what allowed the human brain to grow as large as it did. We could not have become smart without first becoming naked. Scene 21. Losing fur created an immediate problem, cold nights and cold climates, but our ancestors solved this problem not with biology, but with culture and technology. Animal skins became clothing, shelters were built, fire was mastered and controlled. And here is the profound point. By replacing biological fur with cultural solutions, our ancestors gained something no other animal had: flexibility. They could adapt to any climate, not by waiting millions of years for evolution, but by making a new tool or a new garment. Losing fur accelerated human cultural development. Scene 22. This cultural replacement of fur may be the single most important consequence of going naked. Every other mammal is biologically suited to a specific climate range. Polar bears cannot survive in the tropics. Tropical monkeys cannot survive an Arctic winter. But humans, with clothing, fire, and shelter, have colonized every climate zone on Earth. From the frozen Arctic to the scorching Sahara, from the highest mountain to the deepest jungle. The naked ape lives everywhere. Because it learned to carry, it's for externally. Scene 23. There is one more dimension to losing fur that rarely gets discussed: touch. Bare skin is extraordinarily sensitive to touch compared to fur-covered skin. The nerve endings in human skin are some of the most sophisticated sensory equipment in the animal kingdom. Physical touch between bare-skinned humans, the handshake, the embrace, the comfort of physical contact, releases oxytocin, the bonding hormone, far more powerfully than touch through fur would. Our nakedness may have deepened our social bonds in ways that contributed directly to the cooperative societies that made us dominant. Scene 24. So why did we lose our fur? The honest answer is, probably all of these reasons working together over millions of years. The savanna heat created pressure to cool down. Bare skin and sweat glands solved the cooling problem. Fewer parasites made the bare individuals healthier and more attractive. The aquatic phase may have accelerated the process. And the cooling of the brain may have enabled the very intelligence that allowed us to compensate for nakedness with clothing and fire. Evolution rarely has one cause. It has 1,000 small pressures all pushing in the same direction. Scene 25. 6 million years ago, a furry ape began losing its coat. It seemed like a vulnerability. It was actually a superpower. The bare skin that left us exposed to the sun, the cold, and the elements forced us to be smarter, more cooperative, more inventive, and more adaptable than any other creature on Earth. We did not conquer the world despite being the naked ape. We conquered it because of it. The fur we lost was replaced by something far more powerful, the human mind. And that trade turned out rather well for us.